Welcome to the Dungeon Crawlers podcast, casting light onto the depths of online multiplayer gaming. I'm your host, Agelus, and we are here for a reboot of the Dungeon Crawlers podcast, our MMO news and discussion show. It's gonna be fun for sure. I have with me my amazing co-host once again, Stormslord. How are you, sir?
Good. Glad to be back.
We also have Alpha Soul.
What a downgrade in location, man.
Where's our tavern? I don't want to be in a dungeon. Is this a sewer?
It might be a sewer. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're casting light into this deep, dark hole called MMORPGs. And that voice, Crowjack.
Crowjack. Who even is that?
No
And back
idea.
on topic, why are we in this dungy sewer? I paid top coin to get a fine establishment, and you put us down here?
Apparently not.
Yeah, I know, right?
Top coin.
Maybe-
like 30 bronze coins, like top.
Maybe all your
Pocket
malicious, smurfing activities that you do in all your games have forced us to hide in this dungeon to avoid the law.
Smirking?
Yeah, there you go.
Smurfing?
I don't know.
Working?
Smorking? Sure. I don't know. Whatever
Are you
guys
going
say.
for like charge and attack stuff?
I don't know.
If
No.
that's what you're doing, then it's smorking.
Okay. Anyway, I said hi to all our co-hosts. You guys are great. We got a fun show. I'm excited for this show, mostly for the fact that we'll never be short of news. Ever.
That's true.
Always going to be something to talk about. This show is going to be a little different. Like I said, as the show progresses, we will learn and do a few things differently each time until we get into our groove. The main thing we're going to be doing for this reboot episode is kind of get our flow together and what we're working on, et cetera, et cetera. So it may take a little bit of give and take, but we'll work on it and go from there. We've got lots of news. We got a new MMO announced, a game shutting down, a massive update, an alpha test going dark, a new piece of content coming out, and a developer sticking their foot in their mouth. Yeah. All right. It's going to be fun. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk to each of our hosts and find out what we've been playing in the world of MMORPGs. Let's start with Storms.
So, couldn't have guessed. I've been playing Atlas, right? Trying out the new content, trying to tame the new creatures that like bat you across the world when you try it. Just today, I sailed 7 servers, so it took me like 3 hours to get from one to the other, to one end to the other. But anyways, besides that, I've actually taken advantage of this podcast and moved on to games I haven't played in a long time. I pulled back up Star Trek Online, Neverwinter, and then almost downloaded ESO, but still can't put that one back on.
Can't bring yourself to do it.
Not yet.
Nice. How about you, Alpha Soul?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 quite a lot and getting ready for the Shadowbringers expansion, which is going to drop, I think, end of this month is when early access goes in. So I'm maxing as many classes to 70 and like completing all the story to get caught up and alternating between that. And then I'm getting my PvP fix from Division.
Nice.
Division 2. Yeah.
Did the Division 2 ever get their raid patch in?
Oh, yeah, they got their raid. It's at this point, a good amount of people have cleared it. It caused a little bit of controversy at first just because it was harder than a lot of people were expecting, and they didn't have what is it? They've got like this shared service basically where you can randomly group with anyone at any time. You just have to find the activity, but they didn't do that for that. You had to make a pre-made group to access the raid. So, yeah.
You mean like
But
how
good fun.
MMOs are supposed to be?
Exactly.
Social. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Crowjack, what about you?
Speaking about social, Hello Kitty Island Adventures has this terrible rap for being an MMO, but it is a top drawer game. I've been playing it nonstop, 37 hours a day, and it's fantastic.
Very nice.
No, I'm kidding. It's Black Desert Online, the quest for more sand in the desert. I love the game. I'm obsessed with the game. It's my goal to be the #1 character in our guild, and I'm well on my way. There's about 2 people left in the guild with more gear than me. About 2 people, and I'm chasing them as fast as I can.
And higher level than you, too.
No, I'm 61.
No, but if you sort by level, it sorts based on the actual experience showing them above you.
Oh.
Damn it. I'll find them. I'll catch them.
Yeah, so when you sort by level, see who's on top. I think it's Fane and Uncle, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And soloing guild quests is actually a very nice way for extra cash in that game.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, nice.
Like like Crojack, I've pretty much only been playing BDO. Been working on my I actually hit a 51 stack Tet the other day on my Dandy, just first shot. 51 stack.
You one-tapped it.
I one-tapped with 51. Yeah.
My Dandy took like 8 attempts. My Zarka took like 9 attempts. And I don't even want to talk about how many attempts for my Kudum. So you know what, good sir? One tap.
When I posted it in our guild Discord chat, one of our guild members was like, "Congratulations, Zach. By the way, I hate you for one tapping a 51 stack."
Your first pen is going to take a lifetime now, because that's how RNG works, right? That's how RNG works. You do the bad luck, the
Not
good
for
luck.
Ag.
Not for Ag. You got that
He is all
guild
the good
master
luck.
loot.
Why do you think I want to roll around with all ton guards? And people are like, "Are you nuts?" No,
You're a madman
I
with
know.
deep pockets.
very deep pockets. But I've been doing that and working my way through with my wife. She's actually been playing. We're almost done with the main storyline. But I need to start getting on Dregheim because the new Stars Fall. Yeah, Stars Fall. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Stars Fall? Zone is out, but you can't get the quest line to go there until you finish Dregheim. So, yeah, I need to do that. Yeah. And I've been playing a little bit of ESO. Very little because Elsewhere has just come out. So I tried to jump back in to do the story because we do another show, Tales of Tamriel. And I need to get in on that, but I'm stuck in Murkmire and I hate swamps. Yeah.
You're not going to make it out with Murkmire. You're just stuck there forever.
All I know is, and if you're interested in hearing the full tales, you can go listen to Tales of Tamriel. But I'm in a swamp, and my very first quest that I got back to, I helped a bunch of Argonians procreate.
Well, there you go.
I am legit 100% was to get them into a mating ritual, and at the end you had the big Argonian who's leading it going, "I erect the spine of procreation," and I went, "I need a shower. I feel dirty."
I'm done.
That's taking immersion a little too far.
What was its name? I always love the names of the lizards in ESO.
If I remember correctly, it was something like Wallows in Mud.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing in the world of MMOs. All right. Let's go ahead and jump to the next thing, which is going to be the first bit of news. First up, a little bit of sadness. Worlds Adrift, if you've been following that, is shutting down in July. This was a post off of the Steam community page for the app, and I'll read this verbatim because this is coming from Bossa Studios. At Bossa Studios, we love taking risks and making stuff that no one dares to do in order to create a great original experiences for players. Worlds Adrift was an ambitious undertaking for us, a community-crafted MMO built on freedom and player agency with multiplayer physics set in a huge world. We are proud of what we achieved with the game since development began 5 years ago. Out of a humble game jam. We are immensely grateful for every traveler who has come to experience this community-crafted world. However, Worlds Adrift just hasn't reached a level of popularity it needs to continue. The challenges that come with our ambitious project meant that all our work went into making the game work rather than making the experience we wanted it to be. As a result, we failed at making a game that could capture the imaginations of millions. Creating an MMO like Worlds Adrift is a huge financial commitment, and unfortunately, the game is just no longer commercially viable. Worlds Adrift has not captured the imagination of as many players as we needed to make it commercially viable.
So we talked about this in the pre-show. And one thing they mentioned, that the big world, the vast world, is all fantastic, and that's something you want in an MMORPG. It's just their chosen game direction, their chosen niche, their theme, their topic of a game is just not there's not a large enough audience out there or gamers out there to want to play that kind of game of steampunk airship kind of stuff. Saying that, if they did a better job, good gameplay trumps the theme 9 times out of 10. The gameplay is amazing. You can swing from a hook in that game and flying through the sky in these airships. If the gameplay is great, you can overlook the theme of it and just enjoy the gameplay. But they didn't even do that either. So they had a niche product with gameplay that wasn't all that great, and that's why they are where they are right now.
Yeah, I can see that. To be honest, that's kind of what worries me. I hate to jump into the same game that we've been talking about for ages, Ashes of Creation, but that's been one of my actual prime worries is whether or not Ashes of Creation can actually attract enough people and keep that amount of people with its niche. Because a PvP game, again, I love PvP. You guys know me. It's hard to get other people to sustain and subsist in that environment of losing or dying or coming across that adversary. So being that niche type of game, I think it's very common unless you have something to hang your hat on that games just come against it.
The thing that worries me, and the thing that not with Worlds Adrift is this game was the flagship of the I just had it in the top of my.
It's an engine, spatial
Improbable or Spatial OS by Improbable. That's who Improbable is the company. Spatial OS is this. If you don't know what Spatial OS is, we talked about it. I don't know, maybe even on this show when we first did it, but those first 15 episodes now are archived and a thing of the past. Retconned. Yeah, we're doing the whole thing. This is episode 1 again. This product is a way that was supposed to build worlds for MMOs very quickly, populating them with content, with NPC, all sorts of stuff. It's supposed to help build and facilitate these massive worlds, and they've been pushing this. But a few months ago, Worlds Adrift was using Unity, and Unity changed its terms of service and said, no, you cannot use this. We will not support Spatial OS in our product anymore. And there was a few weeks and up to a month, I think, where there was worry whether or not the game was going to continue, because that's what the entire game was built on, this random generation or not procedural generation via Spatial OS, and Unity nailed it. But now Spatial OS has no flagship for this. So this may very well bring down more than one company.
That's typical of companies, though. Like Fox versus Comcast, and they all will just go against each other because they want the bottom dollar. And that's why Unity was doing what they were doing. They wanted more money.
Fun.
Well, wasn't there a piece of content? Like, wasn't Unity trying to build its own?
Well, yeah, right? Because then you're going to license that from Unity and not Spatial OS, right? So they want their own piece. They're going to pull anything they can to get you to use their own stuff, including putting in their user agreement, which nobody reads, but when you do read it, you can get in trouble.
Right. I think the one thing to take note of is while this game is going offline, the multiplayer version, there was a version, it was like their creation mode is still going to be you could still get it off Steam and you can build. But one of the things that Worlds Adrift did was you were able to use this creation mode, build things, and then import them into the game.
Like the build, and then in the game, acquire the materials and create the object. Yeah.
But
That's
I
kinda
think that's, you could still do that, but they're taking away the MMO part, the actual import.
Yeah.
And I know some people I know while that's sad, it's still a plus if your main thing in this game was creating. You can still do that. And we're nearing the end of this topic, but the one thing that sticks home with me is when EverQuest Next got canceled, they kept up their playground box or whatever it was called. What was the name of that stupid building game? Help me out, guys. Come on.
Oh, Landmark.
Landmark. Thank you.
Yeah.
Landmark was supposed to be the building ground, sort of like APOC. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
the testing ground.
Oh,
was
did you
supposed
do
to-
that?
Yeah, yeah.
How very astute of you, Jealous. Thank you so much. Anyway, Landmark was supposed to be what they were using to test things that go into EverQuest Next. EverQuest Next was canceled. They said we'll still keep Landmark. Landmark eventually got crushed, and they took it offline. They didn't even allow it to stay in the creative mode, like an offline version that people could just build. They said no. At least with Worlds Adrift, you can still do that if that's what you wanted. So,
Gotcha.
moving on to the next bit of news. A new MMO has been announced. That MMO.
Speaking about building stuff, building ships. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're segueing properly. I was like, please don't leave me hanging here.
That's a little rough, but
It could have been
I'll
terrible.
take it.
See, okay. Anyway. All right, whatever. Here it is. It's playing in the background.
Okay.
So for those of you who are watching the video on on Twitch and our YouTube, you can see this. It's pretty neat. Like, this thing is supposed to be a massive building simulation. The one thing that's you want to talk about niche again, I think this is 100% creation, no PvP at all.
I think there is PvP in the game because you see in this video some combat and some space combat, and then some salvaging operations of busted up ships. But yeah, first and foremost, it's ship creation. You're going to watch in this video, like each panel is put into place and held into place by nuts and bolts that you put in it yourself. And you can take the panels apart and cut through them with lasers. And the building in this game is beyond in-depth and specific and detailed and time-consuming.
And you can put loops and all of this
Oh,
stuff. And
shit.
it's just amazing. Yeah.
Did you see
That was
them?
programming language.
Yeah, they were programming the door. If equals this, door open,
my
door
God.
closed.
It is
If
giving me a
Bob,
major.
if Crow walks up to door, open the door. If Bob walks up to door, enable trapdoor.
Exactly. But you could do that. That is the neat part.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you
Bob.
got a new game for your channel now.
No. This is the time sink to end all time sinks. Just guessing based off of the possibilities. No, please no. For the people who would love something like this is like perfection, or could be perfection. We don't know. It's not out yet. We haven't felt it or tasted it yet, but it could be if it allows you to customize your ships and to build them to such detail. That could be amazing for some people.
Let me
Not named a project.
I want to highlight this, that the people who have made this game are the same people who made the puzzle adventure game Trine, if you know what that one is.
Nope.
Really, Trine actually it's a niche topic or a niche game once again, but it's very popular among, the people who like those type of, it's like a side-scroller puzzle game. It's pretty neat. My wife and I actually played it. It's like co-op. And there were, in the original Trine, there were like 3 characters that each had special powers. And you needed the other people to help you get through a puzzle. Like the wizard could levitate. So like you would jump on like a boulder and the wizard would levitate the boulder up so you could get to a higher platform. Kind of reminded me of like a fantasy Portal, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think this could have a lot of potential for the crafter types. Especially if the world is big enough that allows, how do I want to say this, that allows people to kind of build on their own. I know it's an MMO.
Go off.
Exactly.
Build a little space
Exactly.
station. The space station can build ships. Have a guild.
Gotta-
Everyone's building their own ships and stuff.
It's got to be big enough. No, there's not instance, right? So it's got to be big
Yeah.
enough to handle all that.
Right. And I don't think I still am, if I remember correctly, I don't think there's PvP. I actually think that it's a PvE menace, kind of like when we were playing Conan, the Purge or whatever that happens.
Yeah, there could be.
Because if I remember, I think this was almost only a PvE experience.
One thing I'd like to see, when you see in the gameplay, they're putting down the plates and they're hitting the bolts into the actually those bolts and the locations stay there forever, right? So you could be If I was a design a ship, it would look like hot garbage. Plates randomly placed, bolts in every single location. But I bet you there'll be some crafters who will be very particular in where they place things, put the bolts in the corner, and everything lined up and very square and nice. Me, oh my god, it'd be just a hodgepodge. I'd be like one of those scavenger types whose ship's just like a slammed together thing of all sorts of other parts.
No, I built Discovery from 2001. So
there you go.
That's what I would build, right?
There you go.
Anyway, from their press release, I'm going to read this. This is the company called Frostbite who did this. Set in a universe of vast scale and detail, the fully destructible environment and hybrid voxel vertex-based game mechanics enable simulations in the game of immense depth. Minor collisions may break a few outer plates off your spaceship, while fast speed crashes can rip the ship apart.
Yes! I am here for that. I want to see that.
Thruster propellant pipes leak may cause spaceships to stall, but a corrosive leaking propellant may also melt the superstructure of the ship and cause a catastrophic failure. Damaged ship controls in a spaceship does not necessarily mean your journey's over, as manual values for a flight can be applied directly to the generator and thrusters from the engine room.
So you lose control at the helm, you trot on down to the engine room. Okay, let's add 5 power to the left thruster. Let's go over here and add 15 power to the right. Oh my god, are you kidding me? Warp core breaches, eject the warp core, it's gonna blow. Come on, full Star Trek. Let's go.
There you go.
Every problem solved by the deflector dish, rerouting power, changing the harmonics.
That's the part. So this will be an MMO. The part that I was reading, Starbase will also be launched with a private sandbox mode, which players will be free to explore themselves or in small groups online.
If the developers are intelligent and they want to get some free advertising, create a workshop mode for that offline sandboxy thing to allow people to upload their creations to the workshop for others to download and to observe. Because from the perspective of a content creator, showing off really cool builds and then smash those really cool builds into other things on video form would make for amazing, compelling content, which would help to advertise this game further on the internet.
So you can see Krojek as a kid taking 2 trains and running them together.
I want to take USS Enterprise and something from Star Wars and smush them into each other in a video and title it USS Enterprise crashes into Death Star. Like, that's great content. Give it to me.
When you run out of photon torpedoes, just crash your Enterprise into the Death Star.
If the last Star Wars movie is any indication, yeah, that's what you do. Light speed right into the ship.
Which, by the way, I always wondered why they never did.
Why did they never think
to
of
begin
that?
with?
It takes a Japanese kamikaze jet pilot to space levels.
Yeah. Or just unman them. Just set it down.
You don't know why? Because that's why. Yeah, exactly. Why not just do light speed?
And they showed them all.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's opening Pandora's box from a plot perspective.
Sure.
Okay. Next thing we got up here is going to be... Well, I'm going to have to put that up there. We have a new update from Atlas. So, Storms, tell us a bit about this.
Oh, gee, I think I know that one. So this is coming on the heels of the first major update, which was at the end of April, which wiped out everybody's stuff. They started all over, which really teed off some people. But it allowed them to reset their claims and everything. So that's something different. This update doesn't wipe out everything. What you've done is you have new sets of weapons, a new structure. Interesting to me because I did breeding. They've added an ice box, which you can bring ice from the Arctic to cool down your breeding environment because you can't breed a giraffe in the same environment as a horse. Because the horse needs fire and the giraffe, so it's really interesting to do all this sort of stuff. But to take it, you've got to breed this horse in I think it's cluster 11 or 12.
I'm sorry, did you say the horse needs fire?
Well, you have to keep the horse warm enough so it's not too cold.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And you got to keep the giraffe warm. So it's a whole gaming of temperatures, right? Because you have to watch for the first 10% of the growth. And what I had to do is I can't cool down anything until this update. I'd run them outside and try and run them in the water and sharks eat them and all sort of stuff. Now, if you have ice, you can throw this ice box in to cool down the environment. So it's interesting. They've added a bunch of PvE stuff. Their first PvE dungeon, things like that have come in. They've added another 20% landmass to Atlas. It's a pirate game. It's still 80% water, but they've added some more islands. So it's really interesting. I'm not even up to the new stuff yet. I'm still catching up to the April update.
I'm just picturing Stormlord running his baby giraffe into the water to cool it off, and the shark just comes up and devours it, and there he is crying on the shore because his baby giraffe's gone.
Because it takes 3 days to raise a giraffe or an elephant, right? So it's like 3 days, you got to babysit this thing and chomp. So,
Wait, but why are you raising a giraffe anyway?
Well, because what you can do is you increase their stats, right? Because
why?
Breeding.
Well, because you want to be able to move more stuff, right? Because you're not in PvP, so you're
it's a pack
moving
animal.
more stuff.
Oh, it's a pack animal.
Right?
Okay, gotcha.
It could be a pack animal, but what you can also do when you're in PvP, the other side of the coin is you can attack with some of these, right? So you get a giraffe, you can knock people sideways. There's also another one, that a shield horn. When people shoot at it, if they hit its head, it bounces right back at them.
Nice.
So it's really interesting to be able to increase their stats, because this game, like Outlaws of the Old West, what they've done is they've taken the art code, they split off a subsidiary.
Yeah.
They said, okay, take this art code, new art, new configurations, start your own game. And this was a pirate one, and the other one is Outlaws of the Old West. So, and they're completely separate, and it's really interesting the more they do, like this new dungeon came out, all this sort of stuff.
Outlaws of the Old West, isn't that the one where you can like have kids and
Not yet, but yes, that's the idea. Yeah. They never got it to work in this one nor that one yet.
Okay.
But they just had their wipe too. So it's, again, it's an interesting concept. You've taken code that already works, you're adding new art, new configurations.
Yep.
And the way of doing it.
I'm guessing that would save development costs, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, and again, to me, it's interesting adding more PvE content, because it started out was very much PvP centric.
How is the game shaping up? I know there's been a lot of issues, especially when it first launched, because it is early access. And
Bingo.
The thing that always... All right, I'm going to take it back a little bit. The thing that always gets me about this wildcard company, the one who makes Ark, I specifically remember them being interviewed in an article where they were asked about whether or not they were going to ever launch. And the person literally went, "Why?"
Yeah, I remember that.
Right, the never-ending early access conversation.
This works for us. Why would we ever go and be launched? That gives people expectations. I was like, what?
At least they're upfront and honest about it. Like, wow.
They smacked them out of the way, because they did launch, right? Took 2 years of early access, but they launched.
Yeah.
And things like, like being in early access, you sort of expect the possibility of a wipe. Nobody wanted it, but all of a sudden you're like, all right, everybody's stuff got completely wiped out. But that means that every instance, right, every of the 255 servers was now brand new and open for exploration.
Which is fun. When the game gets stale, that's fun.
I just discovered something new today, right? I just discovered a pirate holdout that's just a ruin you can do anything with, but on an island I've never been at. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's something that's just hidden in the islands. And they're building the lore up, right? They have these different called Power Stone Islands. They're building up this golden age lore as they go along. It's interesting.
I don't know. I'm still on. I'm all over the place with Atlas. Like the concept of Atlas interests me. Not so much the set. I mean, the setting's cool, pirates, but I'm a heroic fantasy kind of guy. But outside of that, the scale of it is something that it baffles
insane.
me. Yeah. And it's something that I look forward to in MMOs, when you look at something and go, whoa, that is like, and it was one of the reasons why I'm very excited about Chronicles of Illyria if that game ever comes out, because based on the size of the world map, they said in order to walk across a kingdom, there's like 6 kingdoms in the entire thing. It's supposed to take something like 5 hours to cross one kingdom.
Yeah.
And there's 6 of them. on a
The
continent.
larger they get, the more to explore. It's if you like exploration, and it's fantastic.
They said something along the lines of, and this was thrown out there, and they based it on whatever their. I know we talked about world size dependent upon character movement. Games where the characters felt like they moved smaller, like the original World of Warcraft, felt massive because of how slow your character moved.
Yes. Map size is important, but is there instant travel? Is there really fast flight paths? Is there really fast Zeppelin rides from continent to continent? Are there ways of shrinking a world that's otherwise big?
Right.
So the size is important, but also how fast can you get around?
Right. And in Chronicles, they don't want it to. They want it to be something that's long. They actually said that in order to walk from the bottom of the continent to the top of the continent, I think to ride on one of the fastest horses you can get would still take over 24 hours of consistent riding on a straight line.
I don't know how I feel about that. Part of me is like, that's amazing. Part of me is like, I don't know.
Well, some of them, like in the case of Atlas and Ark, they have beds, right? You can transfer from one place to another, but you can't take anything with you at all, right? So you end up there with just your clothes. So that stops, people from porting over with all their stuff and taking over an island or whatever, right? But it's really interesting. In the case of Atlas, and I'm sure other ones, depending what you're doing, they're going to, if you want a really fast ship, you're going to build a schooner or a galleon, not a brig. You got to pick and choose what you want to do. Galleon, while fast, it's hard to park, right? You got to dock this huge boat up against an island. So it's really interesting. And like I said, it took me 7 hours to go 6 squares because the wind was against me. If I have the wind, it maybe take me 3 hours to go 6 squares.
And I love that when a world feels large enough. And in the case of Chronicles of Illyria, let's face it, in terms of Chronicles of Illyria isn't so much of a game as it is, and Atlas is a little more gamey in this regard, but they want it so that your character in its lifetime wouldn't venture that far unless, let's face it, back in the days, who discovered a new continent? Like Christopher Columbus. No one else did. Everyone else thought he was crazy. We'll stick here. We're cool. So you may have to start another character and start living another life in order to experience other regions of the game, because your character, unless you make a character that is very much a out and explore character, may never see outside of your kingdom, outside of minor skirmishes and stuff like that, and then your character dies and you pass on your traits. Anyway, that was Atlas. We're going to move on to the next bit of news. New World is closing its alpha phase.
Is closing down forever. No kidding.
In New World, they started this up in September. They opened their doors to the public to actually start alpha testing this new. We actually had this discussion in the Hands of Fate Discord. New World, if it's an MMO, an MMORPG, or survival game, and it was weird at where some of us landed on that. Because some people are like, it's a survival game. Based on the videos and stuff, it looks like an RPG because you have character stats but
is there a persistent world? Is there a global marketplace?
Global marketplace?
Not global.
Marketplaces in general.
There's marketplaces in general, but
like an economy, right? That's what I'm asking about regarding the MMO part. It's kind of an important aspect.
So we're trying to be careful, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm hesitating is I'm not sure how much I can say without. I don't want to get the banhammer. I love that game.
All right.
Yeah, I do like the game. I would love that game.
Okay.
I would love it.
Go around the table. In each of your opinions, is it an MMO or is it an online survival game? Online multiplayer survival game.
The only reason why I would say that it's not an MMO is based on the footage that was shown. There was no NPCs outside of monsters.
That's kind of weird. No towns.
The story of the world. Well, there are towns,
alpha.
but there's like outposts, because that's the story of the world. Is you are explorers who found this new world, this new mystical island in the Atlantic, and you're going to colonize it. there's no one there anymore except for the settlers who were there once upon a time got corrupted by some the aspect of this is so cool because it's like a Lovecraftian horror game because you don't know what it is that like it even the pictures like when it goes dark and you start seeing like the wolves get this demonic red eyes.
It's really cool.
Because there's, I don't think an MMO needs to have quest in order to be an RPG. I do think there needs to be some aspect of role playing in it, whether that be NPCs that you have to gain faction with, something along those lines. If you're just playing against the environment and other players, that makes it more of a
sandboxy PvP game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. I fall firmly though in the survival like sandbox PvP game as opposed to an MMO.
Okay.
It scratches a completely different itch to me.
Sure.
Like
but it has MMO mechanics, leveling.
It has
gearing.
for sure.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It almost feels like its own. I almost want to say genre in it of itself because it's not. It's got a little
hybrid?
bit more than
Yeah.
It's a little bit more of a hybrid than a true like just I guess what you would consider like just a sandbox survival game.
And it's almost like a survival game light because not eating and drinking won't kill you.
Right.
It just lowers your regenerations or whatever they showed or talked about. So it's like MMO light, though. If you do die, like it's neat, but yeah, you're taking over land, you're making claims, and you're holding it, and the only thing you're holding it against is other players. It's not like the darkness will come up and attack you.
That's one thing I liked about Conan Exiles is that the purge.
Yeah.
That to me really made it a little different.
And I know there are a lot of PvP only players out there. I love PvP as well, but I do think there needs to be PvE game as well. And from what I gathered from people who broke NDA, which we won't discuss, and the videos that we had seen when they allowed press in, you're gearing up for this, holding this camp. The only game after you hold the camp is to defend it from other players. I think there needs to be more PvE elements, and I believe that's what they're talking about. They want to add new content. They realized, hey, this is what it is going forward, and we need more stuff into it in order to make it more viable. I will say this, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've all been alpha testing other games. From when I got into this alpha test, I think I went to every single person in our guild who got in. I said, if this released tomorrow, they could not take my money fast enough.
I agree.
It ran that
phenomenal.
well.
The level of polish was high.
It was
the engine is phenomenal.
Yes, it ran so well. I mean, there were bugs, there were exploits, stuff like that. They've all talked about that.
But the core game,
but the core game felt so good. I'd have been
Amazon
like,
and their pockets, deep pockets.
They cannot take my money fast enough in order for this game.
You've already talked about wanting to do like more open world, sandboxy kind of stuff, as opposed to like railroad tracks. You want the sandbox, which this sounds like it is.
I 100% Hands of Fate will have a chapter for this when it comes out.
Oh yeah, and I will be in it. And phenomenal game.
The forests feel like forests. You can legitly get lost in these forests. I know people like there's a lot of people. I'm not, I would consider myself more a PvEer than a PvPer. I like raids and stuff like that. New World, it's good, and I will buy it. I will definitely buy it.
I did call their takedown though, and when we're able to talk about it, I'll go more into it. But I do have a post on the forum, in the internal beta forum, and so whenever they lift it and we're able to talk about it, I'll happily talk about it.
Right, but I know the one thing when people talk about. I think when we were talking about how dense the forests were, and someone asked me, and I said, I can't really tell you, but go look at the screenshots. And they are not doctored at all.
Jeez.
Yeah. Like, you know, a lot of other games will doctor up their stuff. You know, oh, you're seeing this. And then when you get in game, you kind of see the difference. They didn't doctor anything. I wish there was more we could even say about this game because I was so excited.
There's only one game released with that engine so far. So that's, I mean, you have to still wait till more come out. Yep, there's only one. Yeah. I was gonna buy it, never did. But coffee something. It's like a fighting game in a coffee place.
Interesting.
But yeah, Lumberyard, phenomenal engine. They took the Cryotech engine, and leased it and modified it. It's just tremendous.
I know the one thing I like about these survival MMOs, if you will, is they honestly, I actually heard someone else say this. Survival MMOs or survival games are doing things that we as MMO players have wanted modern MMOs to do for a very long time and haven't been doing them. These guys have been. The problem is a lot of these survival games like Conan Exiles, for instance, wonderful game. It would be an amazing MMO, I think. The problem is it's too small scale. The world's too small.
Exactly.
This game is supposed to be thousands of players. I think they said their target is 1,000 players on a server, which you could argue maybe that's not a full MMO, but maybe it is. What other game has had 1,000 players on a server?
Oh no, that's definitely good.
Yeah.
Again, if the world map isn't massive, those 1,000 players can make the world feel alive, right? Because that's what matters.
The alpha maps were still fairly big. It took a while to get around.
It did, because there was no mounts.
There's no mounts, no fast travel.
I think that first one will change. I'm not sure, but I think the first one will change. But again, we'll see when it moves forward. I'm tremendously excited to see when it moves forward.
Okay. Next bit of news. We've got a new... well, Guild Wars 2 has a new raid coming out for those of you who are interested in the new raid. Go ahead.
I said, I am blissfully, I mean, not blissfully is too strong of a word. I am ignorant to what Guild Wars 2 is, what it has to offer, what it looks like, the flavor, everything about it. So this is my first look at Guild Wars 2 specifically.
You didn't play Guild Wars 2 before?
When it came out, I was so deep in World of Warcraft, nothing could take me out. So deep in World of Warcraft.
I would say it's definitely worth a shot as an MMO. Give it a shot. It's a different vein.
It's interesting because there's very little horizontal progression if that's what you're after. Like even the raids, all of the raids that they've released so far are just really hard story instances because there is nothing else. True. So this is supposed to come out. This Key of Adashim comes out June 11th.
So it's all vertical progression.
All vertical.
Which is what you mostly want in MMORPGs. Acquire more power, gear up, acquire more power. That's how MMOs usually work.
Yeah, and it doesn't have it. A lot of it is the dress-up game. Finding
it does not have it. It does not have.
Finding. Oh yeah, that's right.
After you hit level 80, there are different levels of gear.
Yeah,
but all levels of gear are essential. It's very similar to how ESO does it with sets. You build out a set. Now there is a slight, like their legendary weapons do have like a 5%, but you can make ascended weapons which have the same power as legendary weapons.
Okay.
It's just a little harder to make, but in reality, it doesn't take you long. Even a fully geared exotic player is only about 5% less effective than somebody in full legendaries.
So then you hit max level and it becomes nothing but horizontal progression. Correct. Just sideways. Wow. Not for me then.
Yeah,
not if I'm playing an MMORPG, for me, it's about grinding gear and acquiring gear and doing raids and PvP to acquire more gear to continually vertical progression until you reach the top and then new expansion comes out, vertical progression goes again. That's what MMOs are. If I want horizontal progression, I'll just play a shooter because everyone's equally geared. At that point, skill wins.
Yeah.
See, I think I differ from you there. I
Which
like
is why you start to lean towards those sandboxy more kind of late for you.
it is. And actually, my wife and I talked about, like, we haven't played a lot of games together, and it's because my tastes have changed.
Mm-hmm.
She very much likes, and I'm not saying I love raid progression, but at some point I've grown tired
Of the loot treadmill?
of the loot
Keep
treadmill.
chugging along on that treadmill?
I like to know. I like to have my suspension of belief that what I'm playing is a game and not living in a world, if that makes sense.
I thought you play
Wait,
MMOs
say it
to do
again.
the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be Second Life. It's supposed to be the world you dive into to escape your real world.
Yeah, and as I said, when you're playing these raid games,
Yeah.
you are playing a game. I gotta hit my we're gonna do hard mode now, versus it feeling like a living, breathing world. It's
so you're
like
saying that
I kind of see what you're saying.
it's all about gear score and DPS numbers and your mitigation, and it's so much more about the numbers in the game and acquiring new gear as opposed to getting lost in a world of exploration and crafting and building.
right.
To me, it's the repetition I don't like in some of the dungeons, right? And the raids, and they're having to repeat over and over and over and over the same thing. Some people love that. It's just not for me.
Different kind of repetition, mining ore over and over and over, chopping down trees over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
It's different if you're using it
survival-
though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
different.
because they use it, right? Now, one of the interesting things of other games is you can use different types of things to build better stuff.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it depends what you want to do in an MMO.
I
Yeah.
like having it there, but I like to know the world is changing at the same time. And the one thing that Guild Wars 2 does really well, or at least they did, was their living world, where, especially season 1, the world radically changed.
Mhm.
I mean, they essentially blew up Lion's Arch, which has been essentially the capital city of their game. When Guild Wars 1 came out, Lion's Arch was the main hub. Like 100% the main hub. When Guild Wars 2 came out, Lion's Arch naturally became the main hub. Everyone's like, I remember this from Guild Wars 1. We're going back to Lion's Arch. And then they went, yeah, we're going to blow it up.
Yeah.
So, is this what attracted you guys to Ashes of Creation and the concept? Because in that game, they do have the availability of vertical progression, of raids and stuff like that, and acquiring gear, but also this ever evolving and changing world of cities being created and cities being destroyed. Is that why that
And
game
exploration and
Exploration.
yeah, absolutely.
And the fact
Interesting.
it looked like The Witcher originally, now it doesn't. But anyway,
Again, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Wait, see more raids.
Yeah,
You gotta
you
see
know.
more stuff.
yeah. But
Too much elf stuff.
yeah, even the thing that hooked me was the node video,
Yeah.
where they're like,
Yeah.
this essential trade has awakened a dragon in the mountain. That is,
Me too.
there was a story. Let me tell you this. This sort of fits and not really with Guild Wars. It kind of actually does, because Guild Wars 2 Living World, later on it became more like a story mission, and then they just added new maps. Their Living World has declined a lot from what Season 1 is, because originally Season 1 changed the
Yep.
world. If you weren't there, you didn't see it. They changed when they went to Living World Season 2, and again, with these raids, they're very static, very hard raid progression stuff. But what happened was, in Living World Season 1, they blew up things, they brought in new islands, and it was an event. Like, they raised the Karka Island, and it was a full event. Like, if for a week long, it was nuts. There was invasions, there was it was so cool to be a part of it. And then when Season 2 came out, they said, you know what? We want people to be able to get it and also sell it. So they sold it, and it became more of an instant story.
No, don't do that.
And it really sucked.
You need those events. Look what Fortnite's
Yes.
been doing. Completely different genre. Fortnite has, every time there's a new season or a development in the season, there is a one-time event that goes across all Fortnite maps where a volcano explodes or a time vortex opens up. And if you're not there for that event, well, you missed it.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And I hope MMOs of the future can continue to do stuff like that.
And I don't mind MMO progressions if they tied it with that kind of living world system. You know, dungeons, raids, great. But eventually, after so much happens, something bad. You know, the opening of Ankh-Raj in World of
Yes.
Warcraft. It opened a
event.
raid, but it was a world event that did
Yep.
it. That makes a world feel alive, and that's
Why
what
in
I wanna
Ashes?
see.
Like they mentioned the volcano, right, and the dragon coming out. Or let's say you get a node in a certain spot to a certain level, opens up a raid. If that node is destroyed, well, the raid's gone. So if you didn't get in the raid, you missed out.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah. That I would like to see that going forward, that these things pay more attention to these open world that stick around, because it is a game. I don't like games that are just like Chronicles of Illyria is a good example. I'm excited for it because it has all these interesting systems, but it is not a game. There's not gear score. They ask, what does an average person do? Well, what do you like to do? Well, I like to raid. We don't have any raids. Well, what do I do? Well, you live a life. What would you like to do? Well, I want adventure. Well, you can adventure, but if you die, you're not going to be fighting a raid boss. Your idea of adventure is going out in the forest and there's wolves eating your sheep. Like it's not a game. It's a world. I want something kind of in the middle. A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Anyway, moving on to our last news topic of the night. This one's going to be a little funny. Fallout 76 project lead argues that repair kits aren't pay to win as long as you're not competing with anyone.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this. This was actually taken from an article by PC Gamer, because Bethesda, before the launch of Fallout 76, let's take this back. If you haven't seen the video from Internet Historian about the history of Fallout 76, I implore you to go do it, because they essentially condense what was this entire, I try not to curse on this show, but this messed up cluster that was Fallout 76. They condensed every one of its controversies into a 20-minute video. And when you sat there and thought about it, you're like, oh dear heaven, what kind of mess is this? When they actually sat, I was there for each thing that was announced, and I heard it at the time, but it was always separated by a few weeks, a month here, whatever, because it's been about a year. But when they condense a year's worth of just the cluster that was Fallout 76 in a 20-minute video, oh my god. Anyway, at the launch of Fallout 76, they promised that this game's cash shop, which they call the Atom Shop, would only have cosmetic options. You hear that, Ashes of Creation? Anyway. And nothing that actually affected gameplay. All right? Well, they started adding repair kits. The thing that's funny about these repair kits is they not only fully repair your items instantly,
Which is gameplay.
Yeah, which is gameplay. But they even allow for you to repair the item and increase its durability more than what normally would be possible in-game.
Above and beyond the in-game durability limit.
Yep.
Right there.
But project lead Jeff Gardner had this to say: I would argue with anyone that repair kits make you win at the game. First of all, you're not really competing with each other, except in the PvP mode. We have all the information on how often people repair, what they repair, and again, you can repair in-game. It's simply just a strict convenience thing. That's my take on repair kits.
So, yeah, it's convenience. It's durability. Now that I'm thinking about it, is item durability. That's not going to affect a firefight between you and a player or you and a mob, right? It's not going to affect your damage or your HP. It's just your durability, so you repair yourself a little bit less. It's still affecting gameplay. From that very first sentence, it's a cash shop of cosmetics only. This is non-cosmetic. This is non-cosmetic. This is gameplay. It's minor. It's nothing really important, but it's a thing. And it's Pandora's box. It opens the door a crack to allow them to go down that path of BDO if they want to.
Well, I always look at these like, what is pay to win, right?
Can I spend cash to gain power faster or immediately? That's what I would say.
I see what you mean. Let's make it even more simple. What's the point of playing a game?
To win.
Fundamentally, entertainment, and for many people, that's to win, to gain power. In these MMOs, it's to gain power, to become bigger, better, stronger, faster, whatever.
Right. So in that, so in general, like the point of a game usually is to progress in whatever game it be. If it's you're playing Tetris, right? Then you're playing to advance to the next stage and get harder, overcome more challenges, etc. If you're playing Pac-Man, it's to eat the pellets or whatever it may be. Pay to win is simply paying to get ahead in whatever your game is, right? Paying for the advantage to either cut down or somehow give you an advantage in said game, right? And that could take any shape or form. In Fallout specifically, repair kits that's your gear breaks, right? It naturally breaks, it naturally goes down. And these repair kits, if you can purchase them, obviously that gives you an advantage, and it gives even more of an advantage because of the fact that they do more than the standard repair kits, right? So you don't have to play against people to enjoy an advantage or to even be called pay to win. Mobile games are all pay to win, or most mobile games are all pay to win and have some form of pay to win, but you don't really play against other players, right?
You know what's funny? It's the wording of the phrase pay to win. You used a great word to describe it: advantage. Pay for advantage. If you phrased it as pay for advantage, then all of these games would fall into that category. BDO. More weight, more inventory space. You're not going to win with those things, but man, is it an advantage, right?
Yeah.
Durability in this game. You're not going to win with more durability, but boy, is it an advantage. It's the phrasing of pay to win. If you just change that one word.
Anytime you offer an optional sub that has benefits, that is by definition a pay to win thing.
Yep.
Which is why all MMOs should just be sub and be done with it. That's my personal. I know a lot of people are like, it needs to be free to play. I'm like, no.
Free to play isn't free to play.
It's never free to play. Yeah.
Freedom isn't free. It costs folks like you and me. Sorry.
Well, it is the anniversary of D-Day, so that actually was.
That's true.
Right there.
That is very true.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, guys, I think that's going to be the end of our show. It kind of lined up fairly well. I want to thank all my co-hosts. We've got Stormslord, Digital Piper Studios. Check out all of his work over there. Alpha Soul has been doing a lot of videos on Ashes of Creation. Check that out. And, of course, Crojack. He does all sorts of stuff, mostly on YouTube now. I would say he streams, but I haven't seen him stream in a very long time.
I remember those days.
I know. I used to be entertained at work. Anyway, definitely check out all of his stuff. It's amazing. Everything Crojack, just look him up there. And of course, you can follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon program at patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork if you want to help support the show. You can also leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because guess what? This is a new show that people know that we are a real podcast, and we say real words. Sometimes it matters. And of course, if you want to send a tip to the show or a letter, something for us to discuss, you can do so by going to dungeoncrawlernetwork.com, hitting the contact us, and dropping down to the Dungeon Crawlers podcast and sending us a mail. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Dungeon Crawlers, and we'll see you next time. See you later.